Well, today on the show, we have a very special guest. I'm excited. We are both wearing pants, unlike his character who does not often wear pants, Asher Grodman, who plays Trevor on the CBS show Ghosts, which is such a good show. And they are coming in now to their fourth season, which is a crazy thing to say. It's hard to believe it's been that long, October-ish. But I'm excited, Asher. Thanks for your time. It's great to meet you and chat with you today about this really cool show and what a career you've had.
Well, it's great to meet you. Thanks for having me. And yes, we are. It's a little surreal that we're shooting. We're not about. We're probably we're like a good little chunk into shooting season four, and we're still here. And a lot has happened in the last few years between worldwide pandemics and strikes and stuff like that. So these goofy ghosts are still haunting this mansion. So we're very grateful for that.
Yes, well, we spoke with one of your co-stars, Ramon Zaragoza, at season
Uh,
one
mhm,
when the show first started,
mhm.
and you are our second guest to talk about the show. But it's interesting because, like most actors, you've done other things. I've seen you on Succession, one of the One Chicago shows, I think, uh,
Mhm.
just a lot of different things. So you're in your fourth season now. You're shooting as we speak. When you start out with this character and now you are four seasons deep, how does it feel as an actor to continually be able to return to this role, expand on it, and tell more story? Because a new season is not always ever promised, really. So you get to keep going, which is cool.
I think more, every opportunity you get as an actor is never promised. So it's weirdly it's weirdly natural, if that makes. I know it's not. I know this is an anomaly of anomalies, but the idea, and maybe it just has to do with how rich the concept of the show is. But it does feel like there's so much to go back to the well and find with these characters that every season we've gotten to go back, in addition to just the thrill of feeling like I'm going back to play with my friends. Even coming off a set today, I was like, oh, I don't really want to leave. I just want to hang out and like I'm done. But maybe I'll just hang out a little bit and goof off. So in addition to that, I think there's this really great yeah, I guess forgive the pun of storylines and things we can access in this world. And the show does a really good job of kind of like touching on something and then moving to something else and then moving to something else. So you always feel like you're left wanting a little more. And I think that goes for the actors too.
I would say so. When you play a character for this long, do you find yourself relating to him more and more every time, like life imitating art, imitating life outside of the fact it's a show about ghosts, but like just personality traits and things like that?
Um, I feel like I often rediscover the things that excited me in the beginning or the things that clicked in the beginning. And then, yeah, new stuff certainly arises. I think at its core, I mean, this is a very like heavy way to talk about a CBS comedy, but like it is a show about or dealing very close to the issue of death and kind of existential questions. So they're universal themes. And we're always kind of like one foot in, one foot out of the world. We're like stuck on the sidelines watching. And so I think that it's a relatable premise. So yeah, I guess there are a lot of impulses um, and things that Trevor does that I find very relatable. Uh, and then as time has gone on and we unearth different things, whether it's his relationship with his parents or his brother or different dynamics within the group. Yeah, I'm always surprised how relevant things continue to be.
I would say so. Well, one of the things that I really appreciate about the show is that it is funny, but it also has moments, as you just alluded to, that deal with real existential things. Like you could find yourself having a conversation about anything really at any moment based on the things that you focus on. And I think it's cool too that you have such a great relationship with your coworkers, everybody involved, that you don't want to leave. I mean, I don't know how common that is. I would imagine that might be an anomaly too, but it's great that you just like want to go work, spend however many hours working on things, but yet you still want to hang out and you can call them friends and even family, which is even makes the job even sweeter, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think it's also just to have a show that hits like this gets to have this kind of run and to be able to share it with people who you really like and you trust. And it's funny. There's those old rules of like never give an actor a note, never these boundaries that we draw upon. And we go in, we'll do a blocking rehearsal, come back to like our little hangout spot, and everyone will be like, "Hey, is this funny or is this funny? Like, should I try it this way? What do you think?" So we have this. Maybe it's codependence, and we're all just like screwed. But I like to think it's a healthy, very collaborative ensemble thing where there's not a lot of ego in it, and we all just kind of want to set each other up and find the music and the rhythm of the scene.
I love that. Well, as a sidebar, I when I lived in New Mexico, I got to do some featured background work and I worked on one show in particular I remember. And speaking of notes, they actually had everybody leave the set in order to give notes to this group of particular actors. I don't know if it was something that they asked for. They wanted to be respectful. I don't know if you ever remember a show called In Plain Sight. It was on the USA Network. It was an interesting show because it was like a relocation program for people either witnessing crimes and they would relocate them. Paul Ben Victor was in it and they would relocate them to New Mexico of all places. Anyway, my point is like it was a very fun set, but also anytime to your point, like, there wasn't a lot of like hanging out afterwards. It was like, okay, we're done. You know, guys like us who had one or two lines, go back to the area and we're going to have notes with the main cast. So it's an interesting process, really. But it's also cool, I think, too, that you have that relationship with your castmates and your directors, writers, showrunners, where it's collaborative, right? Because I think when you do that, it makes the show that much better, I would think, when people watch it.
Yeah, I think as an actor, you're always look, there's so much. You got to hit a mark. You got to hit your light. You got to make sure you're not stepping on anyone else. There's a lot of like structure in the course of making a show, but the thing that is always the exciting thing that I think is the reason people watch or to find those like spontaneous discoveries on camera. Those things that really replicate what life is. And so when you're having fun with the people you're working with and you're surprised and you're playful, that I think that just amps up that kind of chemistry that makes it more enjoyable, makes it watchable. So we got lucky that everyone's got some good chemistry on camera,
Well,
on and
definitely,
off.
it definitely shows. And I think just as a consumer who watches content, you really feel that. Now, was Trevor originally the role that you went out for to begin with? Or I know sometimes actors get called in and they're viewed for one role and then wind up doing something completely opposite.
No, Trevor was always it was the one I auditioned for. Yeah, it was always Trevor. And I remember reading it and thinking, this thing is so clear, it so works. I just gotta, a couple little things for me to do, but for the most part, I just gotta get out of the way and let the writing sing. So I was lucky it was always Trevor.
That's very cool. Now, again, having played this character over the course of 4 seasons, how has Trevor grown from when we first met him, just from your perspective as an actor? And it's a broad question, but I think you learn more about him every season, every episode, and how he's matured in some ways versus when we first met the Wall Street bro kind of like vibe a little bit. Because I feel like he's grown for sure.
Yeah, it's always a tricky question because
Yeah,
like
I know.
yes, everyone grows, but there's also like a cap on that growth, and you kind of like you never want to stray too far from the core of who he is because that's where the fun is in that kind of uh the conflict between these identities, these characters. But yeah, he's grown. I think what has happened, maybe even more than him growing, is that we've gotten to learn more things about him.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the great things about our show, which is very unique to our show, is that we tend to push stories forwards by going backwards. So the more we reveal about these people's pasts, the more we're kind of the more texture the present has. Uh, so as we've seen this guy deal with his parents, deal with his brother, deal with, even just the even one of the great things about Trevor is because he's the most recently dead, and he always plays that role as like the newest eyes of the things that are happening, whether it's a possession or it's
Yeah.
someone, coming down or going down, or yeah, coming down from heaven or going down to hell. He gets to kind of be in the audience's shoes. So he's changed just in the sense of what he has learned about what this afterlife is, in addition to the ways that he's kind of deepened as a person. But like, you don't want him to like this. You still want him to be, no matter how many seasons we go with this, the guy who told everyone that the correct term for going up to heaven is to get sucked off. Like, you want him to continue to be that guy, uh, because it's just that's the flavor that he brings to the show.
Yeah, I think all of us, in a way, at least for me, find myself connecting with him and kind of wanting to be him a little bit in some ways. Now, it's funny because I think it was in season two, Weekend from Hell. That episode always stands out. It's been a while, but I find myself quoting that episode the most, particularly when I'm going somewhere with my 10-year-old and we're driving. He's never seen the show, but I connect with that a little bit just because things are so insane and everything is happening so fast and so quick. But the show's got awesome. Like, I really hope it continues on like Bonanza, Grey's Anatomy style, This Is Us style, and just keeps going. Because I feel like there's a lot of story to tell. You know what I'm saying? And all of that for sure.
I think more than any, I was really excited season one as we were opening up and laying out this world. But I don't know that I've ever been more excited with some of the stories that our writers are coming up with. Joe Port and Joe Wiseman, our showrunners, our whole writers' room. The season four stories are really, these episodes are really, really exciting. It just I haven't seen anything, but just on the page, um, they've been a lot of fun. So I hope we get to do this a lot longer. But I'm also very excited to kind of see how these twists and turns land. It's going to be a fun season, I think.
Yes, I think it's cool. I was hoping to see I reached out, to the team over at CBS because I have a good relationship with them. I've done other shows for them, and sometimes they'll send along uh, screeners before the
Yeah.
episode comes out. But it's always funny because like the sound effects aren't always accurate, or like you can tell that it's a very rough cut. A
Uh-huh.
funny story. Speaking of your Chicago Med stint, I interview cast from that all the time, and I always get episodes from them. And we have a running joke now with the cast that like instead of an ambulance, it's a car horn or a clown car horn. And they're like,
Uh-huh.
really? And I'm like, no, I'm just totally messing with you. But it's very cool. So
That just means you have special access, that you're seeing stuff before it's even locked. That's really
yeah,
exciting.
that usually, but it's oftentimes it will change completely in some ways, like
Yeah.
if you have to go in and do reshoots or AD, um, which is very
Weekend from
cool.
Hell is, sorry, just to go back to this, Weekend from Hell is when Elias comes back, right?
Yes.
And tries to take Pete down to hell with him. Or takes
Yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a fun
I
episode.
would I always tell my kid, "Are you trying to take me to hell with you? You need to change your attitude. Just relax." And he's like, "I don't even know what that means, but I digress." Okay, so you've done a lot of projects, and this show, of course, is on the forefront. But as a creative, when you're not working on this, uh, what keeps the juices going as an artist? Like if you're not memorizing lines or jotting off to film episodes for this show, what do you do creatively that might surprise people that is fun for you as just a general artist, who does this for a living?
I mean, sounds like a very un un this is not the answer you're looking for, but when we're done with this, there's probably like a month of just being a zombie
No, that's for
at the
actually,
end
yeah,
of
I think
the
that's great. That's exactly,
7 month
yeah.
shoot. But I will tell you that, there's look, cracking myself up, trying to make other people laugh. I mean, depending on how you look at auditions, getting an audition and getting inspired by what's on the page, that gets me excited. And then the trick with all that is making sure that the thing that excites you initially when you first read it is the thing that you carry forward in that process, as opposed to trying to tie stuff down. Um, so and it's seeing shows and listening to music and getting out and trying to experience new stuff. It's kind of we this is a marathon, these 7 months of shooting this thing. So when you get out traveling, experiencing different things, just trying to live as much life as you can, in addition to getting some rest, it just kind of fills the basket up. But you'd also be surprised, even in levels of exhaustion, how creative you can be, I think.
Yeah, I would have wondered that. Yeah, and that's the perfect answer, honestly, because it's different for everybody. Like some actors I have the privilege of talking to, like yourself, it's like you're done shooting and now you're off working on an independent project, or I got to go do an off Broadway play. Just, but I would imagine, these days can be long, sometimes 10, 12 hours. I think it's maybe changed post strike. I don't know for sure, but I remember some very long days, like 14 hours on the set, and it's like there's only so much scrolling you can do, or whatever to like keep it going. Very cool stuff. So you get your first big break, your first show when you go to Hollywood and things like that. What are friends and family's perspective of your career now versus when you started? Did you have full support from everybody in your life, or now that they see you on CBS Weekly, they're like, oh, okay, now he's made it, so to speak, because he's on a television show that is massive popularity.
I was very lucky that I always had support. I think I always had support. I'm forming a thought. I haven't quite formed it yet, but I've always had support. I think there is a thing that I think a lot of actors struggle with. I struggled with, which is there's like a dream and there's an expectation, and because this business functions in such a way that the work you put in is not necessarily what you get out of it, or there is a direct relationship between those things, but it's a very broad graph, if that makes any sense.
It does, yeah.
So there's a kind of a delay. This was like 20 years of pursuing this stuff before Ghost came along. So I had a very supportive family and friends and all that. But it doesn't make it easy. There's a lot of like taking care of yourself
No.
that you have to do, because you can feel like you're just like banging your head against the wall for a very long time. Um, and I got lucky that this happened, because I'm very aware, like I could live 100 careers in this business and all of them successful, and never touch something like this. So these opportunities are rare, and I got lucky with the support network. But it's yeah, it's a kind of an uncharted territory. You have to figure out how to navigate it.
Did
But
you have anybody to support you navigating it, like actors that you came up with?
I've had some mentors along the way. I've had some coaches along the way who have meant a lot for me. This guy, Bob Krakauer, who I love, and a coach named Larry Moss, both coaches. So actually, a dear friend of mine and mentor of mine, Marlene Barrett, is on Chicago Med. And so I got to work with her for a hot second when I was on that show. So yeah, you meet like mentors and along the way. But it's kind of like it's hard to describe the experience of it. You kind of just have to get punched in the face a few times to kind of understand what the lay of the land is. So having people who've kind of gone through it a little bit is really helpful.
Yeah, and you got some Law and Order SVU credits under your belt. I mean, that keeps actors employed for like a really long time. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's a badge of honor. So something interesting is uh you have the Jacksonville Jaguars documentary that I saw uh about the it's a mockumentary clearly, but about the NFL being scripted, which
My proudest accomplishment in my life.
it really should
I
be,
love that
frankly,
movie.
like because when I saw that just randomly, before I even thought about reaching out to your team to ask you to come on, I thought that was just great because being a semi pseudo sports guy, I found that to be kind of interesting. It was really funny. So
Thanks, man. Yeah.
congratulations on that. Yeah, that was I've watched that a few times, and people that I know that are hardcore NFL fans when it comes to fantasy football season right now, I always send them this link to the short because I'm like, I don't know, it's kind of interesting how this
Uh,
could happen. And you also, which is very cool, you have an MFA from the ACT in San Francisco. So
mhm.
I'm a former Bay Area resident. How long were you in? Did you grow up there, or is that where you just chose to go to school?
No, I grew up kind of in and around New York.
Okay.
And I went to college in New York. And then when I graduated, I had kind of been auditioning and well, I had been auditioning and acting and doing some shows here and there and some little I guess a little bit of television, independent films around that. But I grew up I am dyslexic. I've gotten ways to handle it, but I was always really scared of Shakespeare. And I spent one summer after I graduated college in London and just got my ass kicked trying to do Shakespeare, and it was a very humbling experience. So I decided I wanted to go to grad school to figure out like how to really do this. And I applied to, I guess at the time, what were like the top, I don't know, six, seven, however many there were schools, and got some interest from some, and got to make a choice and chose ACT. Um, and so I think I wanted to get out of New York. I wanted to have a new city. I was there for 3 years in the Bay, and got very lucky there. The people I was with, that ensemble in that class, that group of 10, ironically, the exact same as Ghosts. We all were very close and had this great like ensemble vibe and chemistry. Um, so yeah, I got lucky to be out there and then be able to share that unique experience with people that you really like and you really trust. So I've had some good people around me. I got lucky.
Yes, one last topic or two here. I know you've had a long day,
Yeah.
but I want to talk about you teaching theater to the inmates at Rikers Island. That I think is a very cool thing too. Like, how do you get that gig? I mean, that's like a pretty hefty thing, but an admirable thing to want to do too, and share the gift of storytelling.
Yeah, I don't know that I was looking for that. It's you got to find ways to take care of yourself and stay in the game as long as you can. And I always just not always, but since grad school, I wanted teaching to be that route so I could kind of like keep my creative juices going and keep that energy outside of acting still kind of filtering back to acting. So my goal was to teach acting to in a college setting. I was a substitute teacher in for elementary in South Central LA in elementary schools when I was living in LA for 3 years, and then got back and I wanted to teach at a college. I couldn't really find a spot for a second, but someone at Hunter, where I eventually taught, um, approached me and said, they're looking for someone at Rikers to go in. And it was just a volunteer thing, but it was such a unique experience that I couldn't say no. I was so curious and inspired to try to do it. And it was easily the hardest thing I've done. Um, but it was, at the moments when it worked or when you'd have these breakthroughs, you feel like you made some kind of difference or someone had an epiphany. Uh, incredibly rewarding. And it kind of teaches you that the there's a lot of gray area out there, and so I think it's just important to try to um, approach everyone without any preconceived notions because everyone's kind of going through their own journey. But I learned a lot and hopefully made some kind of a difference. I hope.
I think you would have and did for sure. Congratulations, man. This has been an honor chatting with you. I'm excited for the new season. Seasons 1 through 3 can be streamed on CBS. Go check it out if you've not seen Ghost. Please do. Our guest today, Asher, has a fun character, fun storyline. And you're the best, my friend. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your summer. What's left of it. Hopefully, you get to take a little bit of a break here and start the press tour for season 4. I'm sure very soon. But I appreciate you hanging out with me today, Asher. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Brad, thanks so much for having me. This was a blast. Yeah, man, and thanks for shouting out the show and for watching the Jags video, giving a little shout out there. No, this is so much fun. I'm so glad we got to do it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.